Sonic the Fighters has sort of been delisted. As part of what seems to be a larger effort from Sega, many classic games from the publisher and developer are no longer available for purchase on various digital marketplaces. And honestly, it has been a little worrisome. Sega is a company that, as far as they go, has generally been seen to, I think, have a pretty good relationship with their back catalog, if imperfect. For pretty much 2 decades, there's always been a big Sega Mega Drive/Genesis collection in print, featuring good enough emulations of most of Sega's first-party heavy hitters. Their games have been pretty prominently included in the Xbox backwards compatibility program, which has meant that a lot of Xbox and 360 titles like Panzer Dragoon Orta and Sonic Unleashed have been able to remain playable on modern platforms. Genesis and Mega Drive games have been available for quite some time on the Nintendo Switch Online service, and before that made frequent appearances on the Nintendo Wii and Wii U Virtual Console. On top of that, Sega has even bankrolled some more ambitious efforts, like working with legendary emulation studio M2 to release the enhanced emulation-based 3D Classics and Sega Ages series, or a few years earlier, adding online play and HD resolutions to classic arcade games like Virtua Fighter 2, Fighting Vipers, and Sonic the Fighters with the 2012 Model 2 Collection series. More obscure arcade titles that are hard to emulate have even made appearances in the Like a Dragon/Yakuza series over the years, with many of them requiring an involved process to port over, according to the game's staff. But as of late, it does seem like things are changing. The delisting of classic Sonic titles to make way for the Sonic Origins collection was one thing, somewhat smoothed over by the fact that the collection would finally make Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles purchasable for the first time in years. And then there was the delisting of, delisting, is that the proper word? There was the delisting of the original Sonic Generations to make way for Sonic X Shadow Generations. Another matter that many publications still considered to be done in an acceptable manner, as those who already had the game would maintain access to it. Then came the announcement in December of 2024 that Sega would be delisting dozens of games, as well as the Sega Genesis Classics collection. Some of these delisted titles included the HD port of Nights into Dreams, the Xbox 360 port of Sega Bass Fishing, which is backwards compatible on modern consoles, and the Xbox Series and Xbox One compatible Xbox 360 versions of Virtua Fighter 2 and Sonic the Fighters. Since then, Sega's decisions regarding these delisted games has been a bit disappointing, to say the least. Xbox owners looking to play the recently delisted Sonic Generations and Sonic the Fighters can now buy those games as part of a $60 or €50 bundle featuring those 2 games, Sonic the Hedgehog 4 Parts 1 and 2, and the Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 HD ports. So yes, those games are still available, but far less accessible, especially Sonic the Fighters, which used to cost only $5 on the Xbox Marketplace. In the case of Virtua Fighter 2's HD port, which was delisted from Xbox consoles in December as well, things are arguably even more dire. As part of Sega's efforts to relaunch the VF series in 2025 with the announcement of a brand new title, and the release of a new PC revision of Virtua Fighter 5, Limited Run Games is creating physical releases of Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown on PlayStation 4, and Virtua Fighter 2 on Xbox consoles. The Xbox exclusivity of this VF2 re-release may seem odd until you realize that this is almost definitely a $40 package surrounding another $5 12-year-old port. Some outlets reported on this, noting that this version of VF2 has a new online mode that allows you to face off against other players over the internet, and that a 6-player online lobby will be supported. But these are all things that the 2012 Model 2 Collection version of the game already allows, even down to the 6-player limit in lobbies, meaning that this is almost definitely the same game, just on a disc. It should be noted that Sega Model 2 Collection games are still legally available on another digital storefront on their own, that storefront being the PlayStation 3, and the PS3 store is still accessible, but its days, most people say, are numbered. On top of that, modern PlayStation consoles do not have backwards compatibility with the PS3, so this isn't a great solution for most people. Sonic the Fighters and VF2 have also been made available as playable arcade cabinets in Yakuza/Like a Dragon games over the years, albeit without online play, so there are technically other ways to play HD ports of these classic fighting games. Still, it's hard not to say this is unfortunate. The Sega Model 2, which powered STF and VF2, was a state-of-the-art piece of machinery when it was created, powering games that were quite literally years ahead of their time. and those who would like to emulate the original arcade ROMs of these Model 2 games will often find that the options for emulating them lack the convenience and speed of many modern emulators. While games running on Capcom boards and on the Neo Geo have managed to see renaissances in the past decade due to their ease of emulation on rollback platforms like Fightcade, Sega Model 2 games like VF2, Sonic the Fighters, and the not delisted Fighting Vipers really are best played online using these old Xbox 360 and PS3 versions. Now, this may not be the end of the story here. Sega seems to be currently gearing up to revitalize a few of their old IPs, not just VF, but also Crazy Taxi, Jet Set Radio, Golden Axe, Shinobi, and Streets of Rage. So chances are, after delisting multiple games in those series, they probably have some sort of plan on how to bring back their older titles. In some cases, the delisted ports are also just not great versions of the games in question. Crazy Taxi's HD port is missing the iconic soundtrack, and the Sega Genesis Classics Collection's emulation was never the best available. Right now, it looks like Sega is weighing the idea of a Netflix-like subscription service for access to their games, which, given how common their games are on services like Apple Arcade, Switch Online, PlayStation Plus, and Xbox Game Pass, doesn't really come off as a huge surprise, and yeah, I don't think fans are too fond of that idea. But maybe it could spur more action to keep parts of their back catalog alive. At the very least, maybe the excellent arcade conversions locked into the Yakuza and Like a Dragon games could at least be made available without being locked inside of a virtual arcade locked inside of another game altogether. A lot of people have wanted me to comment on this for whatever reason as it relates to Sonic the Fighters and its community, but honestly, I just don't really see this making the biggest impact. When it comes to Sonic the Fighters, most players playing that game today are playing the PlayStation 3 version, but emulated on PC. And yeah, the RPCS3 emulator is definitely more demanding than, say, DuckStation or Dolphin, but a lot of computers can run it well, and running Sonic the Fighters on emulator, it's just way easier to coordinate matches in Discord and way easier to implement mods. At this point, I really think Sonic the Fighters Community Edition is my favorite way to play the game, and I think it's nice to have a platform for the game that is more or less controlled by its community and not its IP holder. Is it crummy that Sega is shoving their legacy games into pricey bundles and collector's editions? Absolutely, but for the time being, I at least think the community for this game is gonna be fine. But hey, what do you think? Should Sega really go forward with a Netflix-style service? Is using bundles a good way to keep old titles alive while delisting them as individual purchases? Is Sonic the Fighters even worth talking about this much in the first place? Let me know in the comments, and have a great day.